Hello, and thank you for watching this video on aquatic invasive species created by the Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy. The Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy is a nonprofit organization that was established in 1990 with the mission to preserve and enhance the quality, scenic beauty, and ecological health of the Chautauqua region's lands and waters. This mission is pursued through land conservation, environmental education, and watershed stewardship. We manage more than 1,250 acres of land and currently have 35 nature preserves which are open to the public for outdoor recreation. There are many invasive aquatic plants that exist within Chautauqua Lake, and the Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy has taken the lead in combating invasives through the Aquatic Invasive Species Early Detection Network. This presentation will not only talk about the Aquatic Invasive Species Early Detection Network, but it will provide species profiles on the various invasives present within the lake or who may become present in the lake. Each summer, the Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy conducts this program that involves aquatic invasive species surveys or kayaking different portions of Chautauqua Lake to observe which invasives are present and remove them. The Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy is always looking for volunteers. Our current schedule will be shown at the end of this PowerPoint and it is posted on our website. You can view it at chautauquawatershed.org/AIS. Thank you for joining us today and watching this video. Let's get started. There are four main reasons why the Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy conducts aquatic invasive species surveys. The first being to raise awareness of the threats these invaders pose to Chautauqua Lake and to promote healthy waters for native plants, wildlife, and humans who depend upon them. Second, increasing stewardship is also important so that the lake may continue to provide ecosystem services such as freshwater supply and recreational opportunities, including boating and kayaking. Third, building a network of monitors for the lake helps identify the presence of new aquatic invasive plants and plants that were already present but now may be expanding. Lastly, to have fun. Our surveys bring together numerous people who wish to help keep the lake healthy and be outside in the water. So what are native, non-native, and invasive species? So a native species is indigenous to a specific ecosystem or region, and it occurs naturally without human intervention. A non-native species is a species living outside its native range. It arrived to this non-native region through human activity, whether that is deliberate or accidental. Non-native species can have various effects on the ecosystem they are living in. They may compete with native organisms for the limited resources in that area. An invasive species, such as Phragmites, is a species that is non-native to the ecosystem it is living in. The introduction of this species is likely to cause economic and environmental harm and could potentially cause harm to human health. These species can cause degradation and even extinction to native species. They can also reduce biodiversity and compete with native species. Another example of an invasive species in this area is the zebra mussel, which is pictured on this slide. The estimated damage and cost to control invasive species in the United States alone amounts to more than $120 billion annually. The diagram on this slide is the invasion curve, which shows the stages of invasive species management. The first part of this diagram is prevention. Under prevention, a species is absent from an environment, but the chances of it infiltrating are great, and actions must be taken to prevent that species from taking hold in an environment. This is the most cost-effective way of reducing the impacts of the invader and preventing them from establishing in the first place. The next part is eradication. A small number of species has become rooted in an environment. Eradication is still possible at this point. Complete removal of an invasive species may be possible if it is detected soon after its introduction, and steps can be taken to eradicate it. Early detection and rapid response at this point can be effective, yet it is still more costly than prevention. Containment is the next point on this curve as the invasive species continues to rapidly increase in distribution and abundance. Eradication is unlikely as immediate steps to stop its invasion were not taken, and the species has continued to spread. Intense efforts are necessary to contain the core population of the species and eradicate it from new areas. It is at this point that the public typically becomes aware of the species. Lastly, resource protection and long-term management is what happens when an invader is too widespread and abundant to control everywhere it is found. Eradication becomes impossible. Long-term management aims to reduce the populations to the lowest levels possible or needs to be targeted for select areas only. When resources are inadequate to control these invasives across their range, certain areas must be prioritized. Community input and support is crucial at this point to determine these priority areas and to determine what is considered successful management. Looking to Chautauqua Lake an example, it does not make sense to manage the lake lake-wide. It does, however, make sense to determine priority areas based on need. Overall, the invasion curve emphasizes that eradication of an invasive species becomes less likely over time and control costs increase as an invasive species spreads over time. Prevention is the most cost-effective solution, followed by eradication. If a species is not detected and removed early, eradication becomes impossible and intense, and long-term control efforts are unavoidable. There are two main categories of invasion pathways. We have natural and human movements. Natural pathways of invasion include wind, insects, and waterways. Human movements create pathways of invasion too. Invaders can invade areas through boats and trailers, specifically bilge. The bilge is the part of the underwater body of a ship. Invasive plants and animals can cling to parts of a ship and travel along with it to other areas. Ship ballasts are another path of invasion. Ballast water is water held in the ballast tanks of ships for stability. Invasive species can be in this water as the water is pumped from the water source the ship is in. Invasive species can travel in the water and then be released in another water source. Other paths of invasion include roads and other infrastructure, landscaping and gardening, agriculture, aquarium and pet trade, intentional releases such as releasing a pet goldfish, and biological controls gone bad. This includes using living organisms to control invasive species. However, unintended consequences are the result. Chautauqua Lake is surrounded by a multitude of waterways. If boats are not cleaned properly, invaders will travel with boats and enter the lake. Looking to a 150-mile radius, there are three neighboring Great Lakes, Lake Huron, Lake Erie, and Lake Ontario, through which invaders may come. The Pymatuning Reservoir in Ohio is also neighboring, as is the Allegheny Reservoir and the Finger Lakes, including Canandaigua Lake, Seneca Lake, and Cayuga Lake. Boats in this area may travel from these water bodies, as well as others, for routine operational means or fishing tournaments, and bring with them invasive species that then may enter Chautauqua Lake. So how do you combat invasive species? Well, there's no silver bullet. Successful management plans involve integrated pest management or multiple methods for managing invasive species. This can include preventative measures, educational outreach, and habitat restoration as appropriate. Eradication of invasive species through hand pulling and herbicides are two approaches. Overall, there is no silver bullet to combating invasives, but there are various tools in the toolbox that can be used in combination with others. Combating invasive species is expensive, as there is continuous need to spend money to control the invaders. Referring back to the invasive species curve, the longer an invader is present in an area and without prevention and actions for eradication, it is inevitable that controlling the invaders will be expensive. Additionally, once you hit that top level of the invasive species curve, controlling it means forever. Coordinated efforts and collaborations are therefore essential. Coordinated efforts are more effective than treating individual species at any particular time or place, or using one specific method. Collaboration amongst partners and sharing of resources, including knowledge, are attributable to best management practices. What are the economic and ecological threats of invasive species? Well, there are many, and the estimated damage and cost to control invasive species in the US alone amounts to more than $120 billion annually, $200 million for aquatic invasive species, and $138 million for the Great Lakes. These numbers are from 5 years ago, so you can imagine that they have only gotten larger. It cannot be emphasized enough the high cost of managing invasive species. Ecological threats include degradation of water quality, loss and degradation of biodiversity, general reduction of native species abundance, alteration of community structure and ecosystem processes, nutrient cycling, energy flow, hydrodynamic properties, and loss of ecosystem services. Economic threats include decreases in fisheries and aquaculture production, loss in tourism, recreation, and management, decreases in the navigability of waterways and water bodies, and declines in property values. As you can see, invasive species maintenance is expensive, as maintenance is continuous to stop invaders from having these devastating impacts. Now we're going to get into what species are invasives of Chautauqua Lake and some key characteristics that can help identify them. But first, we wanted to provide a diagram for reference on where each of these invasive species falls under the invasion curve. Under prevention, we have European frogbit, watercress, hydrilla, water lilies, Brazilian waterweed, the round goby, and the rusty crayfish. The Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy is actively working to prevent these invasives from infiltrating the lake. Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy is also actively involved in the eradication of water chestnut, starry stonewort, and water hyacinth. Please join us on our surveys this summer to see these invasives and help us remove them. Under containment, we have brittle naiad, which we will be observing more this summer to better understand where it falls. For containment, there is currently no plan of action. For asset-based protection and long-term management, the Chautauqua Lake Association and the Chautauqua Lake Partnership are both involved in lake maintenance and are involved in combating the Eurasian water milfoil and the curly leaf pondweed. The Eurasian water milfoil is already present within Chautauqua Lake, and it has been for many years. It originates in Europe and Asia and was possibly brought to the area through watercraft transportation. It is a submerged perennial with leaves that are divided like a feather. It has a short stalk with 14 to 20 pairs of leaflets. Each leaf tip is flat and forms whorls of 4 to 5 around the stem. This plant can reach 20 feet in length and branches near the surface, creating a canopy of floating foliage. Whorls of tiny pink flowers may be visible. The Eurasian water milfoil is capable of growing in a wide range of habitats of varying depths, sediment types, and flow conditions. Its fragments can be easily transported between water bodies as well. Once established, this plant cannot be removed, only managed. Prevention is most effective, but it is now no longer possible, as this invasive falls under the acid-base protection and long-term management section of the invasion curve. When you think of acid-base protection and long-term management, think of controlling a species in certain areas that have valuable resources. In this area, think of the Harbor Hotel. If a species is so widespread everywhere, including the Harbor Hotel, efforts can be focused on the Harbor Hotel. Other examples can include swimming beaches, navigation channels, and boat launches, all of which are important resources that would be focused upon first. Here's a diagram that can be used to help identify Eurasian water milfoil. The best way to identify this plant is to look at its leaflets, which appear clipped off and straightened out. To see this plant in person, join us on our invasive species surveys this summer. The curly-leaf pondweed is also present within Chautauqua Lake and has been for many years. It originates in Europe, Africa, and Australia, and it is a submerged perennial with reddish-brown stems that can grow 1 to 16 feet. Its leaves are rigid, reddish-green, and wavy-edged. It is capable of growing in low light conditions, varying water temperatures, and water depths. It is one of the first emerging plants in early summer and will begin growing under the ice during late winter. By the earlier summer, however, it does die back. This plant is often difficult to identify, but once it is identified, physical, mechanical, or chemical techniques can be used to manage it. It is important to identify areas that make sense to manage, such as acid-based management and prioritization. This species falls under the acid-based protection and long-term management section of the invasion curve. Brittle naiad is also prevalent within Chautauqua Lake, and it has been around for many years. It is from Europe, Africa, and Asia, and it is an annual plant with leaves that are long, serrated, and oppositely arranged on highly branched stems. It can grow up to 4 feet in length. Brittle naiad is found in a variety of waterways, and it exists between depths of 2 to 15 feet. This plant will grow in thick mats, inhibiting the growth of native plants, as well as fishing and boating. It can be easily spread by boats, water currents, and waterfowl. Prevention is the most effective control as little information on successful treatment regimes exists. Currently, there is no management strategy, but it will be developed this summer. Last summer, acres were found of this plant around the Celeron boat launch, and our surveys this summer will be observing its locations. It is not beyond control yet. The species falls under the containment section of the invasion curve for now until we have more information. What we're working on this year will inform what happens in the future. If we're finding this year that has spread beyond eradication, long-term management will be the only option going forward. Starry stonewort is also present in Chautauqua Lake and was recently detected in 2009. It originates in Eurasia. It is technically an algae but looks like a rooted plant. Its branches are long and gelatinous-like. At the base of each branch, one cream-colored bulb may be present. It can sometimes be found in deep, slow-moving waters near docks or marinas, or it can maintain populations in brackish waters. This algae can form dense mats along the lake bottom, as well as near the water surface, impeding movement of fish, animals, and boats and the overall flow of water. Manual removal, if possible, is a way to manage it, but it is crucial to remove all the bulbils as they can sprout new individuals. We will be trying new techniques for managing starry stonewort in the lake as a whole. This fall, Moby tracks will be used again and combined with suction harvesting to remove the starry stonewort. Here are some other pictures of starry stonewort. On the left, you can see the dense mats that it forms. On the right, you can see its removal that was done last summer. Water hyacinth is also found within the lake. It has been found in eastern New York, Long Island, and in Pennsylvania. It originates in South America. In warmer climates, this plant is a free-floating perennial, while in colder climates, it acts as an annual. It has glossy, bright green leaves that float above the water surface. The leaves are round, curved, and are attached to bulbous stalks. The roots are feathery, dark purple to black in color, and hang below the plant. It has showy purple flowers that bloom on a long stalk that are approximately 1 foot in length. It is a common water garden plant. This plant is capable of invading any freshwater system, and it reproduces rapidly and can double its population within a week's time. It forms dense mats so that boating, fishing, and swimming are impossible. These mats will also block light and lower oxygen levels. The plants can be pulled while larger infestations can be mechanically harvested, treated with herbicides, or biocontrols. It is important to note that water hyacinth is still sold in garden centers for use. People use water hyacinth as an ornamental in their backyards or in fish ponds, and they may release it into a source of water, not even realizing that they are starting an invasive species problem. Water hyacinth was detected last summer. All of the plants were removed. We will be checking on it this summer through our surveys, and it still falls under the eradication section of the invasion curve. Water chestnut has also been found within the county, but not in the lake. It is more prevalent in eastern New York and Pennsylvania. It originates in Europe and Asia and was first detected in 2009. It is a floating annual that grows fast and can reach 16 feet in length. It has feathery submersed leaves that are glossy, triangular, and toothed that form rosettes. Flowers have 4 white petals and it develops thorny nutlets that mature late in the summer. Water chestnut reproduce via nutlets and fragments of rosettes. The nutlets are viable for up to 12 years. Even if you remove one plant, you have to check for 12 years to ensure that the seeds don't germinate. Geese are known to spread water chestnut nutlets. This is why we go and do early detection each year. Water chestnut typically live in slow-moving or still waters and grow well in high nutrient waters. They form thick mats that can cover large areas, altering water quality and clarity, deterring native plant growth, and making fishing, boating, and swimming hazardous. Small populations can be managed through hand pulling, whereas larger infested areas can be controlled by mechanical harvesters and the application of aquatic herbicides. We've had several populations in the lake outlet since 2017. We've been manually removing them, and populations are getting smaller. Water chestnut falls under the eradication section of the invasion curve, as there is a small number of localized populations and eradication is still possible. Here's a diagram and some other pictures that can be used to help identify water chestnut. The European frogbit has been found within the county, not in the lake. It originates in Europe and is a short-lived, free-floating perennial. Its leaves are leathery and round with purplish undersides. Its flowers are white with yellow centers and they bloom in the summer. This plant grows well in slow-moving or still open water, including marshes, ditches, and swamps or coves. It quickly forms dense mats and crowds out native plants, limiting light. Thick mats may impede recreational activities. Hand pulling may be suitable for small infestations, but little information exists on how to manage large infestations. It is not in the lake yet, but we have to keep an eye out. This invasive falls under the prevention portion of the invasion curve. It is also important to note that there is a lot of European frogbit found at the Audubon Community Center in Jamestown, New York. Watercress has been found within the county as well. It is found in New York along Lake Erie and in Cattaraugus County and parts of Chautauqua County. It originates in Eurasia and Asia. It is an aquatic or semi-aquatic perennial that floats in muddy areas along the water's edge. Its stems are succulent, hollow, and branched, and its leaves are oval to egg-shaped leaflets in 3 to 7. Its roots are long and curve slightly upward. It tends to grow in shallow sections of lakes and reservoirs or slow-moving streams and rivers. It is intolerant of low light. Watercress is fast-growing and fragments are transported easily by wind, water, and animals. Small infestations can be pulled by hand. Larger infestations are harder to control. Currently, there are no management plans for the county, and watercress falls under the prevention portion of the invasion curve. Watercress is already seen in the lake outlet, and there's more in ditches right on the edge of the lake already, so it is important to keep an eye out for this one. Hydrilla has been found within the region. It has been found in eastern New York, Long Island, and Pennsylvania. It originates in Asia and is found nearby the Niagara River and the Pymatuning Reservoir. Hydrilla is a submerged perennial that is a lookalike to Elodea. You can refer to the diagram in the next slide. Its leaves are visibly toothed and grow in whorls of 2 to 8. The undersides of the leaves may have 1 or more spines. The midrib of each leaf is reddish in color, and it spreads by seeds, tubers, fragments, and turions. Hydrilla can tolerate a variety of water conditions and grows in lakes, ponds, reservoirs, rivers, canals, and ditches. It spreads rapidly and clogs waterways, restricting water flow, recreational activities, and the movement of wildlife. Mechanical removal and herbicide and biological control treatments have been proven to be effective, as well as physical habitat manipulation. Prevention and early detection is the best control for this plant, as it falls under the preventative portion of the invasion curve. It is important to note that efforts to eradicate it are failing in the Niagara River, so it is important to keep an eye out for this invasive. Here's a diagram that shows both hydrilla and elodea, which is a lookalike. Be sure to reference this when identifying hydrilla. If you look closely when identifying the plant hydrilla, it is very brittle and breaks easily when picked up. Each fragment can grow into a plant, so be careful. Water lettuce has been found within the region. It has been found in New York, specifically Long Island, but recently was confirmed in Pennsylvania in 2017. It originates in Africa and South America and looks similar to an open head of lettuce. It is free floating with feather like roots that float beneath the plant. It has light green leaves that are thick, hairy, and have scalloped edges and parallel veins. It produces a berry that is green to brown in color. Water lettuce tolerates still or slow moving waters. It forms thick mats that block sunlight and prevent recreational use. As the plant dies back, it lowers oxygen in the water and impacts fish and aquatic species. Small infestations can be controlled by hand pulling, whereas larger infestations can be mechanically harvested or treated with herbicide to reduce the population. Prevention and early detection is the best control for this plant as it does fall under the preventative portion of the invasion curve. It is important to note that water lettuce is still sold in garden centers for use. People use water lettuce as an ornamental in their backyards or fish ponds and may release it accidentally into a source of water, not even realizing that they are starting an invasive species problem. Here's a diagram and some other pictures to better identify water lettuce and to show that its infiltration can be dressed and what the leaves look like up close. Brazilian waterweed has been found within the region, not in the lake yet. It originates in South America. It is a perennial aquatic plant with roots in water up to 20 feet deep, and it grows underwater. It can also freely drift. This plant can overwinter under ice as well. It has thin stems that are upright, cylindrical, simple or branched, and grow to create dense mats. Its leaves are 1 to 3 centimeters and found in whorls of 4 to 8. The leaves and stems are usually a bright green color. The plant has small flowers with 3 white petals. This plant can form dense mats on the surface of the water that restrict movement. Plants can be hand pulled, while larger infestations can be mechanically harvested, treated with herbicides, or treated with biocontrols. It falls under the preventative section of the invasion curve. Here's a diagram that shows the Brazilian waterweed and can be used for identification, as well as some other pictures to better represent it. The round goby, although not an invasive plant, is an invasive species of fish that has been found within the region. It originates in the Black and Caspian Seas in Eastern Europe. It has been found in Lake Erie and is causing problems, not in Chautauqua Lake yet. It is a small bottom-dwelling fish that feeds aggressively on small organisms. They eat large quantities of zebra mussels, small fish, and fish eggs. The adults are 6 to 16 centimeters long, with a cylindrical body and a rounded to blunt snout. It is brownish or olive in color with dark brown spots. They have a fully scaled body too. This fish is capable of invading freshwater systems and mildly tolerates saline waters. They have aggressive habits and rapidly spread, allowing them to compete with and prey on native species. They have reduced populations by eating their eggs, their young, and competing for food. Most management efforts rely on preventing the spread of round goby into new areas. Common methods involve draining water from boats, live wells, or bait buckets before use in different waterways. The rusty crayfish has also been found within the region. It originates in the Ohio River basin of the United States, but has invaded numerous areas within the country. It is a small crustacean with long antennae, 2 pincer claws, and 8 legs. They can grow pretty large, up to 5 inches. Their body color varies from light to dark brown, but they have a pair of rust-colored spots on the hard upper shell. They are commonly found in freshwater environments and prefer areas with rocks, logs, and debris so that they can hide under it. People purchase rusty crayfish to use as bait. However, their aggressive habits and rapid spread allow them to compete and prey on native crayfish. They have been seen killing hellbenders too. There is no known population control at this time, but trapping may reduce numbers, as will increasing fish predator populations. For this presentation, we also decided that it is important to discuss harmful algal blooms. A harmful algal bloom occurs when toxin-producing cyanobacteria grow excessively in a body of water. It is important to note that not all cyanobacteria are harmful. Scientists know that certain environmental conditions, such as warmer water temperatures in the summer and excessive nutrients from fertilizers or sewage waste brought by runoff, create harmful algal blooms. Preliminary research suggests that rainstorms ignite harmful algal blooms in Chautauqua Lake. Rainstorms flush excess nutrients from the watershed into the lake. Unfiltered nutrients such as lawn fertilizers and chemicals then end up in the lake. Harmful algal blooms can be harmful as they deplete oxygen in the water and kill fish and other organisms. Harmful algal blooms that bloom near the surface water can block sunlight from each organisms at deeper depths. Prevention is key, such as preventing lawn fertilizers and chemicals from entering the lake. Currently, we do not have a way to manage them because some of them show up and disappear in hours, so it is still a process that we are learning. Small measures can make big differences in combating invasive species. having a steward on duty near boat launches, cleaning boats before putting them in other water bodies, and posting signs near boat launches are all methods to help stop aquatic hitchhikers and their detrimental impacts. We will be putting these posters up near marinas and around the lake to help remind people to clean, drain, and dry their boats and to report any invasives that they see. Ceasing to feed the weeds is also an important measure. Creating buffers is integral in keeping invasive species out of a water body. Nutrients absorbed by buffers help prevent the formation of harmful algal blooms. In addition, vegetation more than 6 inches tall keep geese off the lawn and provide important buffers. One way that you can help in the fight against invasive species is by reporting your sightings. IMAP Invasives is an app that allows you to report invasives. You can request a free account. There is a specific site for New York, and you can follow the link on this slide to set up your free account. The Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy also submits data that is collected. So how can you get involved? Join our Chautauqua Lake Early Detection Volunteer Network. Through this effort, we hope to encourage and equip interested citizens with information to identify and report emerging aquatic invasive species and join in coordinated efforts. Here is our summer 2024 survey schedule. Please be sure to refer to the website for an accurate schedule, as surveys may be canceled or rescheduled due to unforeseen weather circumstances. Please email ais@chautauquawatershed.org to RSVP. We are actively working on how to handle starry stonewort and can use help for manual removal of water chestnut. Please join us this summer. Thank you so much for your time. We hope that you learned a lot from this presentation and are ready to get involved in the fight against Chautauqua Lake's invasive species. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the email provided on the previous slides. Thank you so much for your time and for listening.